Big fella, I'm on your... Oh, there'll be the music first, won't there? Good to go. And get straight into your Good morning. Good morning. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to day 2 of the World Arabian Horse Racing Forum. This is Tomo. We are live in Bucharest in Romania. And our first session, what a lineup we've got live on stage with over 300 delegates here from around the world who've come to get the opinions of some of the top guys and ladies in racing. And let's start this session. This is all about jockeys, how to improve, how do we make it safer, a jockey's insurance and all that. Because racing is the only sport in the world that I know where the ambulance follows the competitors. That's how dangerous it is. Well, I'm going to start with the gentleman on my left, Remy Belloc, and he's from the United States. He runs the Jockeys Training School in America. First of all, happy Independence Day, July the 4th.
July 4th, yes.
Well done, big fella. Now, what are your thoughts? Come on, tell us more. What are your thoughts? Go for it.
On jockey safety, on everything. Well, for one thing, we've had a pretty tough winter in California, as you know, so the jockey safety issue has been a very important part of it. I think that in a nutshell, what we need to do in the U.S., though, is we have a lot of pressure on trainers to enter horses in races. We run a lot of racing. I think that one of the parts of the solution is to run maybe fewer races and put less pressure on trainers to run horses when they're not ready to go. I think there's a lot of other issues too, medication reform, different things like that, but that to me is a preeminent part of the issue that was in California.
Ian, let's move on to you. I'm going to try and get you all in just at the top of the show so you can say a few words. Well, Ian Patterson, from Australia, originally a steward in Cyprus. You watch, you see, sometimes you give suspensions. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think many measures have been introduced over the years to improve safety. I think it starts with the training of the apprentices, and Lara's been instrumental in that. So the young boys starting off must have an understanding of the rules and ride safely. Then it progresses on to the trainers to prepare their horses and be adequately schooled before they race. And then on race day, you require the tracks to be consistent and safe, well prepared. We need the jockeys to ride within the rules. Then we need the stewards to be strong and dish out appropriate penalties for dangerous or reckless riding.
Interesting. The gentleman on your left is from New Zealand, originally from Australia. And it's an interesting one, this. You have the jockey school. What can you tell them to make it safer? Because when the tapes go up, when the starting stalls open, they go for it.
Yeah. Good morning, Tomo. I think the jockey school is very important. As Ian said, apprentice training in particular is crucial. And we must have good riding mentors working with them. and educating about safety. Ian's role is particularly important on the racetrack because if the stewards aren't enforcing the rules and making sure that the riders are riding safely, there seems to be no point. And the man on my left, Xavier, is a great example of someone, a jockey who looks after the safety of his fellow riders during the race, as does Richard and many others that we know of. So I think the education and training, the good stewarding on the racetrack, good tracks that race safely, and the jockeys looking after each other on the track itself, crucial.
You mentioned Xavier. Xavier Ziani, one of our top jockeys based in Dubai, the UAE. Xavier, you know when we learn to drive a car, we're young and we're not allowed on the road, and then we're allowed on the road. So it's like the jockeys. So they go to jockey school, but then they go to the race course.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, again, the accident, it's part of our life. Every time we jump on a horse, we know it can happen. So the stewards are here there is rules, we have to respect the rules, but you never know what can happen. As you said, it's like with the cars. You don't know, you are driving on the road and suddenly someone cross the street and you hit him or something. The accident, it's part of our life. Anytime I'm jumping on a horse again, I'm risking my life. I love that. If I could not do that, I will not do. But there's probably things we can improve to make it safer. That's why we're here to talk about. But again, you can protect yourself. We have to be protected, but accident can happen.
The gentleman on your left, Alexis, who's from France as well, you look after the amateur jockeys, and I believe you had a fall just last week. One of your top riders had a bad fall.
Yeah. Yes, we had a big accident a few weeks ago. A lady rider, she fell in a small track in west of France, and she was injured she stayed during 15 minutes, disconnected, and now she's still at the hospital. But I just want to come back about what you said just before. It's exactly like a driving license. In France, for the amateurs, we have a big exam during 2 days. I do it 3 times per year for 10, 15 future drivers. And they have to know everything about the rules. France Gallo had rules, and they have lots of questions about this. It's, when you have to ride a horse around 40 kilos between your legs and keep control, it's exactly as if you had to drive for the first time a Ferrari when you're 16 years old. So if you don't have the basic rules and the basic control of everything, you can't drive your car or you can't ride a horse. So if you don't do the job at the beginning, if you don't teach them at the beginning what to do and how to do, you're going into the wall.
Dato Malik is from Malaysia. Dato, how does it work in Malaysia? Are you agreeing with these people or are different? And by the way, my condolences to the family of His Highness Sultan Shah, the King of Malaysia, who passed away, who was a very dear friend of both of us. But your thoughts?
Well, as far as we are concerned, I mean, the first thing is that before we put a jockey on a 2-point seat, I mean, we have to ensure that he is competent in a 3-point seat. In other words, we undergo a series of training so that he is able to jump his horse about 70 cm and do a novice dressage test, ensuring that he is in full control of the horse in a variety of given situations. And that is essential because of the fact that a lot of accidents can happen during the race because a jockey is unbalanced or he cannot upright himself. And so this insistence on him to be a competent horseman, even before he goes to the 2-point seat, is something that we emphasize on.
Sonia is from Italy. Good morning.
Good morning.
What are your thoughts?
I am an Italian broker for insurance. We are specialized in equine insurance. But as we are a broker, we can find solutions also for jockeys, for jockeys' needs. so for death, total and partial disability, permanent or temporary.
Well, that's interesting. The guy at the end is Niels, who's basically a photographer. But
Well-
you travel the world taking photographs of jockeys. You take thousands of photographs of horses in races. What are your personal thoughts?
Well, I think accidents will always happen on a race course. You can't prove it.
Could we turn, I'm sorry, could we turn the sound up a little bit so we can hear? Could we turn the sound up so we can hear?
Can you hear me?
Yes, that's better.
Good. Well, as I said, accidents will always happen on a race course. I mean, it's built into the sport. Still, we can do a lot to prevent it. I mean,
What?
Like you said, better courses, safer courses, and of course, the jockeys themselves. It's up to them, really. I mean, you have to take care of each other when you're out riding there. You have to take care of the horse, you have to take care of your fellow riders. And if you are a dangerous rider, you shouldn't be on the race course, and that's up to the stewards to put those people away. That's what I think.
Are there dangerous riders, Xavier? Are there dangerous riders? Do you know everything about the guys in the weighing room? Are there one or two you would steer clear of, without mentioning names, obviously?
No, look, I believe soon the jockeys has license. They knows what they are doing. Probably some of them is taking more risk than others. But again, let's compare with Formula One. You have, I don't know how many cars racing, let's say 20 cars racing. Accident happen as well. And they are in a car. We are on horses. So sometimes some things happening which we didn't decide. They are animals. So I will not blame jockeys when accidents happening. Again, you have to take decision in a second.
A split second.
So it can be the right decision or the wrong decision. And again, and you are on an animal, you're not in a car. If I decide to turn right with my car, the car will go right. If I decide to brake, the car will brake. Horses are totally different. So again, I won't blame the jockeys. I think we all respect the rules, but again, it's a race. We all want to win. So you are taking risk, but I believe jockeys respect each other.
What can you do to tell a young guy or a young girl who wants to be the next Bill Shoemaker, the next Frankie Dettori, to keep it safe?
Well, I think that in many cases, one of the things I will say is that sometimes the situation is taken out of a jockey's hands, and sometimes riders are rewarded for taking a risk, for pushing the edge of the envelope by a trainer or an owner who says, you know, I want you to try, you know, do this or that, and to keep that mount, you know, they will take some chances until they're in a point in their career where they can say no to that, you know. So especially with young riders, I will tell them that the first couple of horses you're going to ride are going to be long shots with unknown trainers, and it's up to you to determine the type of rider you're going to be, because you're going to be looked at in the very beginning of your career and defined in many ways as that kind of a rider. And so it's really, and you're telling this to a 16-year-old, and who's you know so determined to succeed that sometimes they won't listen, and they may be riding a cheaper horse who might not be as sound as the other horses, and then you have problems. It's almost like, you know, you're sending them off to war. If they can survive that first year and do well, and then ride better and better horses, then you know, they'll succeed better. And plus, in America, we have agents that we have to deal with as well. So every jockey in America has an agent, and sometimes those agents may not give that rider sound advice because they're in it for the money. And so I try to make sure the kids that come out of our school, we try to personally assign them or guide them towards good agents that I know that will mentor them and bring them along the right way.
What's it like from a steward's point of view? The money's on, you know, the horse win, win, win at all costs. There's a problem. What do you do? What can you do?
Well, we can only react after the incident has happened. That's the worst part of it. But I think the stewards have to be strong and severe. And although Richie Mullen and Xavier are very clean riders, I'm afraid history shows there's a lot of jockeys that aren't clean riders. They have very poor disciplinary records and are repeat offenders. And normally if the stewards are doing their job as they repeat, the penalty gets more and more severe. Hopefully with a proper deterrent effect. It's not always the case. And as you say, when the money's on, big race, they take risks they shouldn't normally take. But history also shows that by and large, they all go around and they all come back. And it's only very rare that there is an incident. But history also shows that these incidents can be very severe.
This is the problem, isn't it? I'm pleased to say you mentioned that. There are few incidents, but when they happen,
They're catastrophic, yes.
That is the problem. But it happens in other sports. You know, we were talking about New Zealand rugby, you know, people get injured and so forth. But racing is a very, very difficult sport. What do you say to your guys? Do you see them perhaps going a bit wrong instead of going left, going right? What do you say to them? Do you pull them to one side and say, hang about, don't do that?
We're a global industry now, Tomo. 30 years ago, probably not much was going around the world on television and through the internet, and now it is. And we can all watch what happens. I have riding coaches in New Zealand ringing me regularly on a Monday morning or after a race day, and they'll say, have a look at race 2 and have a look at the 2 apprentices in race 2. Let me know what you think. Everything's exposed now, and the stewards are looking at it, but also everyone else is looking at it. The public are looking at it. Everyone's making judgments. And jockeys are very aware of this. You asked the question before about unsafe riders. I don't think there's a lot of riders that go out there to bring everyone down or to, you know, to take advantage of a situation and jeopardise the safety of another rider. And apprentice training is directed at that. They're very aware of how racing and their behaviour in a race is exposed.
Xavier, do you help a young rider? You know, say you've seen something in a race, would you go up to her in the jockey's room and say, or would you not? Because you know perhaps he might beat you next time out.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we help them, we warn them. How we got the same. At the beginning when I start riding, the oldest jockeys were coming to me and saying, be careful, you did that, you should have changed your whip, your horse was hanging, or things like that. And Stuart as well are here. But another difference is, when you start driving, I don't know how it works in the UK, but the young drivers in France having a signboard saying they are apprentice driver. So other drivers can see them and can say, oh, have to be careful, it's a young driver. But on horses, you don't have that. Apprentices are mixed with jockeys, professional jockeys, and they have to do them best. They have to prove themselves, probably taking a risk, which they should not. And that's what makes the difference. But as you mentioned, jockeys who's having them license, I think they are professionals. Even the apprentice, they are advised by the masters. They rode some apprentice races. So we try to make the things safe. But is it the question about the accident will always happen? I believe the main question is to say how to protect people in case of accident with the insurance. I think there is things we can improve on that.
What happens with you? Who insures you?
I'm insured by ERA, Emirates Racing Association, where I got my license. And I have to say we are well insured. We are insured, I think, with AXA company, which is an international company.
So the ERA pays for your insurance?
Exactly. Well, I paid for my insurance. They charge us for that when I get my license.
Yeah.
They get some money from my riding fees.
Yes.
And in case of anything happen, we are insured.
What happens to the amateurs? You're in charge of the amateur riders of France. What's it like for the amateurs?
The insurance is a little bit different because jockey, it's your job, and my amateurs, they are students or without job, or they don't need to work, but they have their own insurance. Maybe with their job, they got their own one, and they don't have the right to ride without insurance. There is a flat for flat race, jump race, and you don't have the right to work in the morning, to ride a horse in the morning during trainment on jumps if you just have an insurance on flat. Some of them, sometimes they jump only with flat insurance, and if they finish on the floor, they need to be on the flat track. In France, we have a very good insurance. It's true, it's very expensive, but when you have, and the problem is they just look at the price they will pay. They don't look at which things they will have, which things the insurance will give them if they have a problem. So sometimes it's not because it doesn't cost a lot that it's interesting, but when you have an accident and you want to change the contract, it's too late.
It's very interesting. You know, when we learn to drive, and you obviously have to have insurance, it's very expensive. When you're a young person in England, you've got to be 17. And my son is going to be 17, he's going to be driving. And to insure him, it's probably going to cost £2,000. It's very expensive. Whereas Daddy, a very good, steady driver, never goes fast, is much less. And it's an interesting point, that.
That's because he's driving Daddy's Mercedes. That's why it's expensive.
No, but I'm just saying. Shut up.
Nothing for you.
Dado, what? Thank you.
If he was driving a small car, it'll be less, Tomo.
Listen, he drove me in Dubai once.